Yo, guys, it's Steve with The Forge coming to you today to present days 39 through 41. Hope you had a great President's Day weekend. I know I did. I hope you had fun with your friends and families. Yeah, so let's get into it. So, days 39 through 41, we go through Exodus chapter 7 through chapter 10. And with that, we go through the first nine plagues. Super cool. And then on day 40, we also go through Matthew chapter 17. So let's break it down day by day. So, day 39 is Exodus chapter 7. This is when Moses performs the first plague, when he turns water to blood. What I find interesting is God tells Moses, you're going to go and you're going to tell Pharaoh to let my people go, but I'm going to harden his heart, and people will see that I am God. And then the first plague, as we talked about, is in Exodus chapter 7, and that's when Moses turns the water into blood. And then also in Exodus chapter 8, we see the second through fourth plague, the second plague being frogs. And when Moses said God's going to fill the land with frogs, Pharaoh came over to Moses and said, Moses, I want you to pray to God that these frogs will relent because I will listen to God. I will let your people go. And Moses does, and God lets the frogs die. And then Pharaoh doesn't listen. His heart is hardened. And then the third plague is when God sends lice on Egypt, which I think is crazy because Pharaoh's priests then say the famous phrase, "This is the finger of God." And Pharaoh's heart is still hardened and doesn't let God's people go. And then in chapter 8, God also sends flies onto the land of Egypt, and Pharaoh tells Moses, go ahead and go and make your sacrifice to God and intercede on my behalf. And then what ends up happening is Pharaoh's heart is still hardened and doesn't do it after Moses prays and the flies subside. And then we also see that in chapter 9, we have the fifth plague, which is the livestock is diseased. All the livestock except the livestock of Israel, which is super cool. Um, then we also see the boils. That's plague number 6. Boils then go on to the people of Egypt. And then we also see plague number 7, hail is rained down. But what's interesting is during this time, God differentiates his people from the Egyptians. Just something to think about. And then in Matthew chapter 17, this is still day 40, we see something really cool. This is when Jesus transfigures on the mountain. I'm going to read 17, verse 5. While he was still speaking, behold, a bright cloud overshadowed them, and suddenly a voice came out of the cloud saying, this is my beloved Son, in whom I am well pleased. Hear him. And when the disciples heard it, they fell on their faces and were greatly afraid. But Jesus came and touched them and said, arise and do not be afraid. When they have lifted up their eyes and saw no one but Jesus only, now as they came down from the mountain, Jesus commanded them, saying, tell the vision to no one until the Son of Man is risen from the dead. And his disciples asked, saying, why then do the scribes say that Elijah must come first? Jesus answered, indeed, Elijah is coming first and will restore all things. But I say to you that Elijah has come already, and they did not know him, but did to him whatever they wished. Likewise, the Son of Man is also about to suffer at their hands. Then the disciples understood that he spoke to them of John the Baptist. Let me read that again. I read that a little weird. But verse 11, Jesus answered and said to them, indeed, Elijah is coming first and will come restore all things. But I say to you that Elijah has come already, and they did not know him, but did to him whatever they wished. Likewise, the Son of Man is also about to suffer at their hands. Then the disciples understood that he spoke to them of John the Baptist. So we see that Jesus is transfigured on the hill, on the mountain. It says, while he was speaking, behold, a bright light overshadowed them, and suddenly a voice came out of the cloud, and saying, this is my beloved Son in whom I am well pleased. Hear him. And the disciples heard and they fell on their face. So God is showing his disciples that this is his Son. Now listen. And then after that, we come to this next portion. Well, that's just important. Let me just stop. Let me slow down a little bit. That's super important. If God is telling the disciples of Jesus to hear God, the Son, Jesus, then we need to hear Jesus as well. Take him that serious. But then also, we look in verse, let's say, verse 20. So Jesus heals a boy, and he's going to explain to them the famous faith of a mustard seed verse. So Jesus said to them, because of your unbelief, for surely I say to you, if you have faith as a mustard seed, you will say to this mountain, move here to there, and it will be moved, and nothing will be impossible for you. However, this kind does not go out except by prayer and fasting. I'm still working through that to have that kind of a faith that can move mountains, faith of a mustard seed that is that powerful. I feel like I don't really have that in my life. I'm really working on that. I pray that you do too. And then if you continue to read in verse 22, Jesus says, now while they were staying in Galilee, Jesus said to them, the Son of Man is about to be betrayed into the hands of men, and they will kill him, and on the third day he will be raised up. And they were exceedingly sorrowful. So after he talks about having faith of a mustard seed that can move mountains, then he says, now I'm going to die and I'll be resurrected on the third day. He's setting the stage for when he's departing. And then in the Gospel of John, you'll even see when Jesus is setting the stage, telling him that there's going to be a helper that comes, the Holy Spirit, and that he's not going to leave them alone. Super important. We'll leave that there. And then day 41, Exodus chapter 10, you see two things. Locust was the eighth plague when locusts descended on the land, and the day of darkness, or darkness, was really crazy. All right. So I'm going to read verse 21 through 29 of Exodus 10. Then the Lord said to Moses, stretch out your hand towards heaven, and there may be a darkness over the land of Egypt. Darkness may even be felt. So Moses stretched out his hand toward heaven, and there was a thick darkness in all the land of Egypt 3 days. They did not see one another, nor did anyone arise from his place for 3 days, but all the children of Israel had light in their dwellings. So you see that there was 3 days of darkness. And once again, God differentiates the people of Egypt from the people of Israel. The people of Egypt couldn't even see each other. It was that dark. They didn't even leave. But the people of Israel, when they were walking, or their dwellings is what it says, they saw light. You could see that they were of God's people. So that's something for us to think about. In this dark world, are we surrounded by the light of Jesus because of our faith of a mustard seed? Do people see that we trust Jesus so much as this small amount of faith that we're moving mountains in our lives, figuratively? And then perhaps if we fast and pray, maybe we can actually move those mountains literally. But as we walk and trust Jesus, we'll be like the Israelites in the plague of darkness, where everyone around us is dark, but we have this light covering us because we're God's children. I hope that today was good for you. I'm sorry that today I'm a little off put, a little tired. I'm starting a little later today, but I'm really thankful for you guys being here with me once again. Love you and thank you. Talk to you later. Bye.